shootings are bad for business. So, for argument's sake, you and I are doing a day shift. We're in uniform, and someone robs the local bank. And the guy's coming out of the bank and he's shooting at us. So we light him up. By like 10, 12 years old, my friends and I used to sneak into the post office and steal the FBI most wanted posters off the wall. And then we'd go around the neighborhood, with wanted posters looking for bad guys. And what we quickly realized is our car thieves were in the murder for hire business. So they're talking about whacking this one and killing that one. So when we took that case down, I mean, obviously we stopped an international shipping case, but then we had to figure out how many homicides we had if that bike or car turns up under 30 days and the insurance company will pay to have it put back together or fixed. So Mike Tyson didn't want the bike back, but he got it back. And then all he wanted to do was kick Horatio's ass, and we're like, you can't do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, former NYPD officer, Vic Ferrari, now an author. Please welcome to the show, man. It's an honor to have you here.
Thomas, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And you got some books here, NYPD Through the Looking Glass, Grand Theft Auto, the NYPD Stolen Car Sales, and NYPD Law and Disorder, Dickheads and Debauchery, and other ingenious ways to die, just to name some of them. But yeah, where can people find those books?
Yeah, just go check out my Amazon author page. Just type in my name, Vic Ferrari, like the car, and you can preview all my books for free.
Yeah, also, I want to take it back to the start. Do you mind telling us whereabouts you grew up and, what was it like where you lived that led to you be wanting to be a police officer?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Bronx kid, New York City, grew up, born and raised. Since I was like 5 years old, I grew up watching all these cop shows on television in the 70s. And when I was a little boy, my mother used to take me to the movie theater, and around the corner from the police station, around the corner from the movie theater was a police station. So I was always fascinated with the police cars and the cops standing outside. And I'd always like run up to the cars and look inside and look at the equipment. And every little boy gets drawn to that gun. It's like, I want one of those. So I knew what I wanted to do at an early age. By like 10, 12 years old, my friends and I used to sneak into the post office and steal the FBI most wanted posters off the wall. And then we'd go around the neighborhood, with wanted posters looking for bad guys. Again, I knew what I wanted to do. By 20, I took the police exam. By 21, I went into the police academy. Had a wonderful 20-year career with the NYPD. Worked in a lot of different units. I was in plainclothes 15 out of my 20 years. I worked in the narcotics division. I worked in a DUI unit. I worked in a plainclothes unit going after pickpockets and robberies in progress. And then my last 10 years, I was a detective in the NYPD's auto crime division. So think of anything with auto theft, stealing cars, chopping cars up for parts, exporting stolen vehicles out of the country for parts, that sort of thing. And then when I retired, I got into writing, and I started writing these series of NYPD books. And then I started a podcast, and I'm lucky enough to talk to people like yourself that have your own platform.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's incredible how you did so many things too. What was it like, back in your early stages of your career? What was the challenges?
Well, New York City was not in a good place in 1987, and we were in the throes of the crack epidemic. And I mean, I grew up in the city. I thought I was streetwise, probably more so than kids from the suburbs. But I remember getting dropped off in the South Bronx that was all burnt out in abandoned buildings, and there's fucking crackheads walking around all over the place. And I'm like, what did I get myself involved in? So I quickly realized I had better like pay attention to the old timers, and my head should be on a swivel. And it was. And eventually things slowed down for me where I started noticing things where, as a wild eye rookie cop, it's like you're like the family dog, like running around. It's things slow down and you start noticing things.
Was there ever any moments where you thought, man, I'm not making it home today? Like where you were scared or, it didn't look good?
I was overwhelmed. So, like my first 6 months, so out of the police academy, they throw you what's called field training. And field training, basically, again, they just put you on foot in these lousy neighborhoods and you got to figure it out. It's kind of sink or swim. And every once in a while, the sergeant will take two rookie cops in the car and you're like, oh, great. I get to drive around in a police car. Well, not so fast because you're going to every shitty call because they want you to be ready when you go to a precinct that you have some experience. So You're going to every dead body, every missing children case, like just things that take lots of paperwork and take lots of time, but they and vouchering properties. So they really put you in the furnace to really get you ready for a precinct. But yeah, my first couple of weeks, I really thought about, what did I get myself involved in? But after a while, like I said, you figure it out and it becomes fun.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That would have been scary at first, but how did you, first once you started to get confident, what was the best part of your job?
I love car chases. That was my thing. I was always a car guy. I grew up in a neighborhood where stealing a car was a rite of passage. Like my neighbor had probably had per capita more car thieves than anywhere else in the world. And I worked in a gas station as a teenager, so they were always coming in with stolen cars, trying to get us to repair them, or do we want to buy parts off of them? So I knew what to look for stolen cars. So once I started making my way into a radio car, I was always the guy getting into car chases. Were we allowed to chase stolen cars in the NYPD? No, but everybody did it anyway. And it was one of those things. If you got into a chase with a stolen car, as long as you didn't wreck the police car and the bad guy didn't get hurt or a civilian, God forbid, didn't get hurt, no one was going to come looking for your job. But you get into a car chase and God forbid somebody gets killed, that's the end of your career. But it really didn't dissuade me.
What would be the biggest misconception people have about, police work, becoming a NYPD police officer?
So on TV, if you're watching a movie, right, like Lethal Weapon or any cop show or movie, right, the cops get into a gun battle and they'll shoot somebody and then they're in the bar 15 minutes later talking about it. That's not the way it goes. So let's say you and I are working together and we're doing a day shift, and let's give and cops don't like getting into shootings because shootings are bad for business. So for argument's sake, you and I are doing a day shift, we're in uniform, and someone robs the local bank, and the guy's coming out of the bank and he's shooting at us. So we light him up, right? Justifiable shooting. Yeah. But if that shooting happened at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not going home till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. A sergeant's going to interview you. A lieutenant's going to interview. Detectives are going to interview you. Internal affairs is going to interview. Chiefs are going to interview you. And oh, by the way, they're going to bring in a prosecutor from the district attorney's office with a stenographer who's going to take a statement. Then, within 5 days, they're going to run your statements and the evidence past a grand jury. So you could get indicted for the shooting, even if it's a justifiable shooting, and then you've got to go to trial and fight it in court. So it's not like TV where cops just going around lighting people up and there's no consequences. Another thing is like just minor, but if you crash a police car, like in these movies, people are crashing police cars and it's a big joke. They get pissed off. You start racking up and banging up police cars. So what they'll do is they'll send you all the way out to the asshole of Brooklyn, which is like the furthest place from most NYPD places. And they'll send you to driver training for the day. And if you keep getting into car accidents, you're not going to get in a radio car. They're just going to basically put you on foot for the rest of your life.
Wow. Yes. Big difference. Yeah. Like you said on the movies, you see they shoot someone and they're at the bar, 15 minutes later. Is there been a case that's really stuck with you long after it's finished, that's really affected you, that you stuck with you to this day?
Well, I mean, I was involved in a lot of different cases working in organized crime, but I worked on one case where we had Chinese nationals that were basically shipping up to about 30 stolen cars a month to Shanghai. So what they did was they got in touch with car thieves, local car thieves in the Bronx. They were stealing these Audis. They were parking them in the street. Then they would bring them to the Chinese guys who had a warehouse. They would take the cars, they'd put them in shipping containers, they'd let the air out of the tires so the cars would sit low. Then they would build a frame and then put a second stolen car. So each shipping container had two stolen vehicles. Then what they would do is they would put them on a train and rail them out to California and ship them out to the Pacific Rim. So while we were doing wiretaps on the Asians' phones, and we were doing wiretaps on the car thieves phones. And what we quickly realized is our car thieves were in the murder for hire business. So they're talking about whacking this one and killing that one. So when we took that case down, I mean, obviously we stopped an international shipping case, but then we had to figure out how many homicides we had, and then start making, these guys wanted to make deals because no one wants to go to jail for the rest of their life. And actually the main car thief was the getaway driver on a lot of these murders. So he, raised his hand. I want to cooperate. So with that case, we probably closed about 15 homicides.
Well, yeah, so is that was just happened to be like a bit of a bonus, like listening in. Did you have any idea that they were murder for hire before that, or was that just come across from just from the car thief?
No, it just kind of happened because one guy, well, we had a feeling that one of the guys in the crew was a killer, because basically what started that whole case was we knew they were stealing Audi A6s. And the reason they were stealing Audis were the cars were going to Shanghai and they were for government officials. So they had to be Audi A6s and silver and black. So we couldn't figure out, like, why are they stealing these cars in these colors? And we knew that the cars were getting shipped overseas because they weren't turning up chopped up, and we weren't making arrests with them. They were just vanishing. So what wound up happening is they started, one of the guys in the crew got caught stealing a car, and he was on lifetime parole in Florida, and he just started telling us about the gang and everything. And I'll never forget, I was writing on a legal pad, and I was like, well, tell me about this guy, tell me about that guy. And one of the guys in the crew, name is Fausto Gonzalez, his nickname was Fast. I says, well, tell me about Fausto. And he goes, he kills people. And I go, well, how many people has he killed? He goes, how many fingers and toes do you have? So we knew there was at least one killer in the group, but it turned out there was probably, ultimately we were able to prove that three were killers, but there was probably a couple of others that we weren't able to prove.
Wow, that's incredible. And is it like the movies, when you see the wiretaps going down and you guys have a surveillance van listening in? Is it like that?
Now, so in the old days, and this case was in 99 into 2000. Basically, well, now you're not in a surveillance van. It's called a plant, and a plant is usually an apartment some distance away from wherever the subjects are. But nowadays, with technology, you can have a plant in your office. All you need is a laptop that's equipped to monitors. But in the old days, you had to be like within several blocks away from wherever the wiretap was. But nowadays, you can do it from your office as long as you've got a laptop dedicated to a phone line.
Did you ever see much corruption back in the 80s and like late 80s, 90s?
There was the one. I'll say this about the NYPD. If there's one thing, there's a lot of things I don't agree with the New York City Police Department, but I will say the one thing they made perfectly clear in the police academy was if you're stealing or taking bribes or doing stuff that you're not, you're going to get locked up and we're going to take your job. Did that stop guys? No, there were guys that were still doing stuff. You got to remember when I got hired in '87, there was still a lot of guys left over from the Vietnam era, guys that went to war and came back. They weren't afraid of anything. And some of those guys were footloose and fancy free that, yeah, they were doing things they shouldn't have. But when I was a detective and we were doing these cases and going up on phones, I always used to say, whenever we would go up on a phone, on a wiretap, a cop would wander onto the playing field, sometimes not knowing the people he's involved with, and they're asking him for a favor, and he bends a rule and he gets himself in trouble, or to the point where the guy is actively involved, running license plates for them or providing cover. So, yeah, I had a couple of cases where we had cops that lost their jobs or got arrested.
Do you think there's a big difference between, say, criminals of the late 80s, early 90s to criminals today?
No, I think it's a lot of people want to blame it on socioeconomic problems. Listen, with car thieves, their only overhead was getting caught, right? So a criminal or basic criminal, they don't want to get up in the morning. They don't want to keep set hours. They're gonna hustle when they need money. They're gonna do something. No, I think it's the same. It's just the guys that want to take shortcuts and not work a 9 to 5 job.
What's the funniest moment you had on the force?
Oh God, there's so many. You got to point me in a direction.
Well, I'd say, start in a car, like a Grand Theft Auto situation. Was there any real comical events that someone wouldn't believe was real?
Oh, all the time. Cops used to play practical jokes on each other all the time, especially so like when I worked in auto theft. So we always had airbags laying around the office. So what we would do is we would wire up an airbag under someone's desk. And basically all you need is a battery and some copper wire. And we'd wait till the guy sat in his desk and then set the airbag off underneath this. Then the desk would jump up, and when an airbag goes off, the guy's got all that powder all over him, and it makes a lot. It sounds like a gun went off. So yeah, we should do things like that and bust each other's balls.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone wanting to be a police officer today?
If someone asked me like if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, would you do? I say I would do it all over again. It's a different world from when I got hired. I mean, nowadays there's no discretion for the police. So in the old days, to give you an example, in the old days, New York City was averaging 2,500 homicides a year. Okay. And over 150,000 stolen cars a year. Crime was through the roof. So we didn't have time for drunk driving, right? So did we, if someone got into an accident and screwed up someone's car or hurt somebody, yes, we'd lock them up for drunk driving. But for the most part, we would take someone's keys and throw it in the woods, call them a cab, tell them get out of the car and kick them in the ass. Go, just get out of here. Can't do that no more. If you get caught on a body cam letting somebody go, you're going to be in trouble. So nowadays with body cams and cell phone cameras, cops have no discretion anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd make it a lot harder, especially when you're trying to build relationships with the public.
Oh, exactly. And that's another thing. Like the NYPD got into this thing called CompStat, COMPSTAT. And basically it's this ideology to hold precinct commanders hold their feet to the fire and what's crime is going on in their precincts. So the NYPD became addicted to statistics. But after a while, when Giuliani came in the 90s, the statistics, the crime stats started coming down a lot. But the NYPD got addicted to the statistics and still wanted you to write summons and still wanted you to bust balls. And just like you said, then you wind up pissing off the community because they're like, whoa, 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 I'm not a bad guy. I'm just having a beer in front of my building. And now a van pulls up, 8 cops get out to stretch their legs, and someone's giving me a ticket. Like, what is this? So, yeah, the NYPD sometimes doesn't know when to take its foot off the gas.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a great example too. It's especially you can go too far trying to get the statistics. But
Absolutely.
did you ever have any situations when you were playing clothes like of almost getting your cover blown?
Well, I wasn't an undercover. I bought a couple of things. I bought a couple of stolen cars.
Yep.
But no, to me, no, I never got my now doing surveillance sometimes. Every now and then, if you're following somebody around, and the mobsters, the Italian mob, they were definitely more skilled in spotting surveillance. So you really had to keep them at a distance. I'll tell you a funny story. We had another crew of guys stealing cars, and what they had done was they had stolen a BMW 5 Series. And what they did with the BMW 5 Series was they put another license plate on the car that didn't come back to the stolen car. And then they put a business card over the vehicle identification number. And what they would do is with this 5 Series, they would use it at night, drive up to these affluent areas, drop off the thieves. They would steal cars, bring the cars back to the Bronx, and they were chopping them up. So I figured out the alarm, the stolen vehicle in this BMW. So what I did was I went through BMW and I got a key cut for the car, and we got a search warrant for the car. So the plan was to drop me off in the middle of the night in front of this guy's house. I was going to steal the car, and we had our tech guys waiting in a garage a short distance away. And this is, again, this is the year 2000 technology. They were going to take the dashboard off and hardwire a GPS and a listening device into the car. So I get dropped off. I got a hoodie on, and now this guy that had the stolen BMW was no joke. Actually, he got deported with this case and went to Jamaica, came back about 10 years later and almost killed a cop, and now he's in jail for the rest of his life. So he was no stranger to violence, and we knew he was a bad dude. I get dropped off. Car opens up, the key works. I get into the car won't start. And I'm like, shit. Right. So I'm figuring they put a hidden kill switch in it or they disconnected the battery. So I jump out of the car. I go up the block. They pick me up. We go to a parking lot and like we're trying to figure out why this thing won't start. And I'll never forget the other detective I was working with goes, "Hey, Vic, is the car a stick?" And I said, I didn't even check. I was so nervous. And, it's a 5 Series, it's a 4-door. Why would it be a stick? Let's try it again. Take 2. I get dropped off. I get into the car. I put my foot down. I feel the clutch. Okay, start the BMW up. As I pull out of the spot, we had another guy keep the parking spot. So we had someone take that because if someone else took the parking spot and I had to park this thing down the block, the guy's going to know it moved, right? So I bring it to our tech guys. They put the GPS in. We put the car back. And then we were able to follow them on a laptop. So every time they got in the car, the laptop would set off an alarm. The map would pop up, and then we could listen to them and follow them. And this was in 2000.
That's incredible, the technology then to do that. I didn't think that, we were at that level yet, early 2000. Once he got back, did you have anything to do with him, when you said he tried to kill a cop and went back to jail? Or was that a different case?
No, what happened was he went to jail for stealing cars. He got deported to Jamaica,
Yeah.
somehow got back into the United States, and then he was trying to steal a car 10 years later in a car dealership up in Westchester County. Westchester County cops saw him, confronted him, and they got into a gunfight.
Wow, that's crazy. What about how much, did you have to deal with the Italian mafia when you were on the force?
Yeah. Yeah, they were around. I mean, as long as as long as they didn't feel you were playing out of bounds, like trying to frame them or setting them up. I mean, they weren't happy to see us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't like us. We used to hear them on the wiretaps cursing us. But I mean, for the most part, it's not like they would put a contract on your life because a couple of cops did get hurt. And then the response was swift and painful, and then they backed off.
Who do you think was the worst, like, sort of group of criminals to deal with over time? Was it like the, Jamaicans, the Chinese, the Italian mafia, the Mexicans?
We didn't really deal with Mexicans all that much. The Italian mob, I would say, the Italians were the most organized. The Chinese were very organized. I only did one case with Chinese. As far as tough, like dangerous and tough, I would say the Albanians.
Yeah, okay. Wow. And what were they major into car Grand Theft Auto?
A little bit. They were a little bit into cars, but they were kind of pushing the Italians around couple of years before I retired. Like they were moving into the gambling and the illegal gambling machines and the vending machines, things that was like the lifeblood of the Italian mob for decades. As the Italians were going to jail, as the FBI and the NYPD was basically had decimated the 5 families, the Albanians kind of filled that power there was like a vacuum, and they kind of took over a lot of the rackets.
Yeah. I've seen comments on that online, like once Rico came in and they started taking down the 5 families, that like a worse class of criminals started emerging. Is that how you would see it from the police perspective?
I wouldn't call them worse. I would just say it's just another group that came in, and then what's going to happen is they're going to come to the attention of the federal government. Like we always used to say, like with the feds, when the feds say in the United States, when the feds say it's time to go to jail, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
They have all the resources in the world. Federal court is a lot different than state court. It's a lot easier to put somebody in jail. The sentencing guidelines are tougher. And you got to remember, so say I lock you up for a stolen car on a state case, New York State. The most you're going to get is a year and a half to three. Now, if you got no criminal record, you're not going to, you could probably steal, and now you could probably steal 10 cars before you do any jail time. With the feds, if they get you on a federal charge, right, it's going to be more than a year and a half to three. And here's the problem with the federal system, they can send you anywhere in the country to serve your jail time.
Wow.
And every state in the United States has federal institutions. So if you steal a car on a New York State case, you're going to be in New York in a New York prison. Is it going to suck? Yeah. But your family will get to see you. If they ship you out to California or Louisiana or Texas, who the hell's going to come see you? You think your lawyer's going to take the day off to go to Louisiana to see you unless you're rich? You're fucked. So that's the feds really have you by the short hairs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know they could do that, just send you anywhere. I thought you'd have to be sent close to where you live or where you're from.
Ooh.
So if they,
And here's another thing with the feds. They'll give you a plea bargain up front, right? So say for argument's sake, they'll say, all right, if you take the plea right now, you get 5 years. And you're like, no, I'm taking it to trial. And then say like 6 months go by and you go, all right, I'm going to take the plea. Nope, 7. Well, then I'm going to take it to trial. You take it to trial, you get 10. So, yeah, they don't screw around in the federal system.
is there a good relationship between the feds and the NYPD?
Depends on the agency.
Yeah, okay.
So, I've done cases and dealt with most of them. I would say yes, we get along quite well. The FBI, it just depends on the agents.
Yeah. What's the biggest case you've been a part of? Was that the Chinese one with the stolen car ring?
Yeah, for me that was up there because and that thing I barely slept and that was a multi it was the NYPD, it was the Westchester County DA's office, it was the New York State Police and it was multiple jurisdictions. So and New York is vast and these guys were stealing all over the 5 boroughs. So we were in any borough at any time. Our thieves moved at night. So sometimes you were on the thieves. The Asians got up very early and were in bed by 9. So it was a real contrast.
Wow. Was there anyone who mentored you or someone who stand out through your whole career that you always have respect for, that gave you a lot of guidance?
Yeah, I worked with it's funny. So when I was a cop in a precinct, I was always getting these stolen car arrests. And sometimes I would, in the United States, especially in New York, it was a big thing to steal a car and change the vehicle identification number with the salvage car. So you'd pull over a guy and you're looking at the vehicle identification number and it's like, that VIN number will tell you what kind of engine the car has. That it's almost like a code. So I would stop guys. I knew the car was bad, but I didn't know where to search on the car for the hidden vehicle identification numbers. So I would call the auto crime division where I wound up going. And there was this one detective that would show up and I was a pain in his ass because I would call him several times a week. And then he didn't want to show me where the hidden vehicle identification numbers were. And I would look over his shoulder. So what wound up happening is, all these years later, I go to auto crime, and now he's at the end of his career, and he's like, "You're here now?" And I'm like, "Yeah," but we put our differences aside, and he definitely schooled me.
Well, I'm glad that happened. That's pretty cool.
And me
And
too.
I've seen a Mike Tyson story. Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah. So my old partner had a great confidential informant or a snitch. And this guy was giving us everything: home invasions, kilo arrests. We couldn't keep up with this guy. And one day he called us on a Monday and he said, I know where Mike Tyson's stolen motorcycle is. And we said, what are you talking about? And he said, Horatio, who was another car thief, saw Mike Tyson on the FDR Drive. He followed him. There was a car show at the Javits Center. Tyson parked his motorcycle in the street, signed some autographs, and went in. Horatio jumped on Mike Tyson's bike, broke the ignition, which was a Ducati, which back then was like a $35,000 motorcycle. He drove the bike up to Washington Heights. It's in his apartment. Great. Give us his apartment number. We're going to get a search warrant, knock his door down. Well, the bike's in parts. We go, what are you talking about? He goes, he bubble wrapped it. He took the bike apart. He bubble wrapped it. He put it in a crate. He's got like 3 stolen motorcycles in his apartment. He's going to ship them to the Dominican Republic. He goes, when I find out who the shipper is, I'll give you guys the information. We said, okay. Forgot about it. Just totally forgot about it. And a couple of weeks later, it was on a Sunday. I was watching football, and my partner called me up and he says, you want to come in and make overtime? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, remember Mike Tyson's motorcycle? I said, oh, yeah. What about it? He goes, it's getting shipped. I said, so I thought it was going on a cargo ship being shipped to the Dominican Republic because we did a lot of cases with cars going in containers being shipped. He goes, no, it's getting airshipped out of Kennedy. Go to Kennedy Airport. Horatio shows up with a couple of guys with a stolen van. Mike Tyson's motorcycle included with 3 or 4 other bikes. So they all got locked up.
Yeah. So it's like Mike Tyson got his bike back.
He was not happy. Like my partner dealt with Tyson the next day.
Yep.
And in the United States, if you have what's called comprehensive or fire and theft insurance, if your vehicle or motorcycle is stolen, if it gets recovered after 30 days, they cut you a check. If that bike or car turns up under 30 days, you keep it, and the insurance company will pay to have it put back together or fixed. So Mike Tyson didn't want the bike back, but he got it back. And then all he wanted to do was kick Horatio's ass, and we're like, you can't do that.
That would have been pretty brutal.
Well, Horatio's no longer with us. He died in a motorcycle accident in the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
He actually got decapitated.
Wow, jeez. Probably on a stolen bike.
Yep.
Yeah. What made you decide to start writing and becoming an author? How long after you left the force did you start writing?
I was bored out of my mind. Didn't know really what to do with myself. And my friends and family said, you should start writing these stories down. You've got these stories. You know how to tell a story. And I average about a book a year. And as soon as I get them out, I start going on podcasts and doing radio interviews, and they're selling. People seem to like them. I get good reviews. So I'm going to keep doing it as long as it's fun.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to start writing?
Do it. Don't put it off. And for new authors out there, don't write in chronological order. You will paralyze yourself. You know what you're going to write, be it a novel or short stories. Pick a story that you know backward and forward that you can tell at a pub. Start with that story. It'll be enjoyable. You can get to the beginning, the middle, and the end later. Just start writing and it'll all come together.
I seen another topic you talked about on a show when they started drug testing like NYPD officers towards the end of their career when they got pensions coming up. Is it, what was...
Well, it's supposed to be random.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be random. That started see, when I first got hired, you were drug tested 3 times during your 2-year probationary period. But for anyone else, the only way you would get drug tested is what was called for cause, meaning a supervisor had suspicion you were using drugs, and then there was a procedure to go through. But they could get sued if someone gets pulled out, tested, and they're fine. You're like, this guy's got a problem with me. He's trying to ruin my career. Yeah. But what happened was during one of the contract negotiations, I think it was in 1998, the city won, and then we were supposed to be able to be randomly drug tested. And I didn't get drug tested for probably my first 10 years. And then once in a while, when I was like my 17th, 18th, I was going like 2-3 times a year. So in my opinion, it's not random. My opinion, I felt that the city could save a lot of money if they fired somebody in their 18th year and they didn't have to pay them a pension. But that's just my theory on it. But everybody says the same thing. The older you got, the more times you were getting drug tested.
Yeah, I think you're right. You see that in a lot of big companies as well. It's like another business. They don't want to pay that ongoing, like you said, the pension. They don't want to do that. I think that's crazy. Is there a story that you haven't told on a podcast yet that you could share today?
I don't think I've told this story yet, and it's from my new book. It's told to me by a good friend. So in an NYPD police station, there's usually one cop assigned to what's called station house security. And he's like a bouncer at a bar. And basically, you make sure that nobody gets to the desk officer until you interview them. And whatever their problem is, the desk officer has to talk to them. So people come in, I want to speak to the detectives. He shows them upstairs, the detective squad. People want to make an accident report. He walks them into a room and they make the accident report. So there was this grumpy old sergeant on the desk, and he was the kind of guy, if you let, you're like a goalie. And if you let one too many goals in, this guy was going to make your life miserable. So it was a slow afternoon. And the guy from the cable company shows up, and the guy from the cable company says there's something with the internet or the TV cable or whatever. I got to go on the roof and check for wire. So the cop says, you want me to walk you up to the roof? And he goes, nah, I've been up here before. He goes, okay, fair enough. Guy goes upstairs. So my friend tells me about 2 minutes later, the guy comes running down the stairs, like out of breath, like he saw a ghost. And he goes, what's wrong? He goes, there's a fucking naked guy on the roof on the roof. He goes, what? He goes, there's a naked guy sunbathing with a towel on. So my friend's like, come on. He goes, I'm telling you, I'm not going back up there. So now if my friend tells the desk officer is going to say, how did you let that guy get up there? Right? If he goes to ask another cop, they're not going to believe him because they're going to think someone put a blow up doll up there to scare the rookies, or whoever goes up there is going to get hit with water balloons, right?
Yeah.
So my friend says, all right, I'll do it. So he goes up the stairs, opens the door. He's looking around the roof. There's a guy naked on a towel with sunglasses on. So he takes his gun out. He walks over to the guy and he kicks him in the side of the ass. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? So the guy jumps up and he goes, it's an expression NYPD members use. He goes, I'm on the job. And he goes, what job? He goes, I work here. He goes, never seen you before in my life. What do you mean you work here? He goes, I just got assigned here. So my friend goes over to his pants, goes through his wallet, and he finds his NYPD ID card. Now, when you get in trouble in the NYPD, there's two ways they deal with you. One is suspension, which don't even come around. The other is modified assignment, which means you're in trouble. They took your gun and shield from you, and they're going to assign you somewhere else until they figure out what to do with you. So this cop's card says modified assignment. He goes, when did you get assigned here? He goes, today. He goes, so why are you up here naked? He goes, well, I'm doing a 4 to 12. I got here a couple hours early. I figured I'd catch some rays. He goes, put on some clothes. Because if that guy downstairs on the desk sees you or finds out about that, they're going to stamp suspended on your card. The guy goes, all right. So this guy, the naked guy on the roof, different kind of guy. And the reason he was on modified assignment was a couple of days earlier, he was a swinger. And him and his wife were having sex in their car in front of someone's house in upstate New York or Connecticut. The state police pulled up, told him to knock it off and get out of there. And he started giving them some lips, so they arrested him. So the NYPD, when its members get arrested, they put them on modified assignment until they figure out what they're going to do with them. Somehow, some way, about 4 or 5 years later, this guy gets his guns back. And I'm working a Yankee game in uniform, and I get assigned to him, and I'm looking at his last name, and I'm like, this is the naked guy my friend kicked in the ass on the roof. And all this guy doesn't know me from a hole in the head. And all he can tell me is he's a swinger, and he loves to swing, and him and his wife go to these sex parties. And I'm like, that's great. Would you just get the hell away from me? And he retired from the NYPD.
Well, that's crazy. What's the most ridiculous thing you've had to write in a report?
Ridiculous?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in a report. We had these gypsies. I don't know if you have gypsies in Australia.
Yeah.
And they're always pulling some kind of scam. And what they did was they were killing us with burglaries. So what they would do is they would pull up to these 6-story buildings in the middle of the day when most people aren't home, except old people that don't work. And then they'd bang on their door and say, listen, the landlord or the super of the building sent us here. We're exterminators. The woman downstairs was bitten by a roach and we're going to spray the apartment. So one guy's talking to the old lady, the other two are moving furniture around and pretending to spray, and then they're taking shit, jewelry and cash. We were getting killed with this, and it was the same thing, bitten by a roach. Like, I've never heard of someone bitten by a cockroach before, but whatever. So it kind of died down for a while. It stopped. Like, we got like 10 reports, and then it stopped for about a month. And about a month later, it comes over a suspicious vehicle parked in front of a building. So me, my partner, and my sergeant, we pull up in front of a building. We're looking at them, and they drive off. And they had out-of-state plates. I run the plate, does not come back to the car, comes back to something else. Pull them over. Guy gets out of the car, and he starts handing me shit. And I'm like, get back in the car. And I see the exterminating tank. So now it's starting to, and I used to be an exterminator before I was a cop. So then I'm asking him what kind of poison it is in there. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. So we brought him into the station house, and then we started bringing the old people in, and we did lineups, and they all got picked out for burglary. But the craziest thing was I had never heard of someone being bitten by a roach before, and it was in every report, bitten by a roach. We're like, where did you even come up with this?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's great. That's ridiculous. That ties in with the next question I have. What was the funniest slash stupidest criminal you've dealt with?
I'll give you two.
Yeah.
So the craziest, early in my career, we're watching this homeless guy, and he's looking in cars. It's only a matter of time before this guy breaks into a car, right? And he walks into a pizza parlor. He comes out, goes around the block, and he breaks into a car. So we jump out, pull him out of the car, and I go to search him. I stick my hand in his pockets, and I'm like, fuck. I got melted cheese all over my hand. He put a hot slice of pizza in his pocket to keep warm, and then broke into a car. And I'll tell you one more. So we get called out to this short stay motel, and it's a motel where people go that can't meet in public because of marital obligations. And we get called to this shitty motel because people are complaining about all the noise they're making in room number 4. So my partner and I go over to room number 4, and just before I bang on the door, I hear an old woman's voice yell, "Be a man and put it in my ass." So I look at my partner, and we just start laughing. We're like, we can't stop laughing. So I bang on the door, and this old man opens the door, and he peeks out, and he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Pop, I hate to bother you. We got to go in there and take a look around." He goes, "Okay." So he opens the door. The guy's got a pair of boxer shorts on, and his testicles are hanging down his leg. Granny is in the bed with the comforter up to like her eyebrow, right? And my partner's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I don't want to embarrass him, but God forbid someone's in there with them." You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, so I look in the bathroom. They're just like, "All right, carry on. Sorry to bother you." Right. So as we're leaving, my partner goes, "Did he put it in your ass?" And the old lady turned around and goes, "Wouldn't you like to know?" And we just got the hell out of there.
It's not. I want to ask you too. What's your writing process? Is it easy for you because you got so much content?
It was easier. I mean, now I'm on my ninth. I just finished my ninth book,
Yeah.
so it's getting a little more difficult. I do have a really good memory. My books, they're not novels.
Yeah.
They're just chapters with 2 or 3 short stories per chapter with a theme, and I just go from there. It takes me about a year to put all the stories together, the chapters and everything, write an opening, write a closing. Um, it takes me about a year, and I do it at my own leisure. I find that I'm a better editor in the morning. I tend to pay attention more, and I'm more creative at night for whatever reason. But I just go. I try to write about 45 minutes to an hour a day.
And so yeah, in the morning's best for you editing. And what about the next 12 months? What can we expect from you?
Well, I'm working on my NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, and I bring on a lot of retired members of law enforcement. I've had a couple of mobsters on that, well, they tell me they've turned their lives around. I don't know what they do in their spare time.
Yeah.
A lot of FBI agents that talk about their cases, authors that write about famous crimes and criminals. So that's available on YouTube, and I'm still writing, but I'm really focusing on the podcast right now.
I want to ask your thoughts. Do you think the Italian mafia is finished?
No, but I think they've definitely been neutered. They're somewhat restrained. I watch a lot of gangster podcasts with ex-gangsters, and they seem to think that the mob has kind of pushed away from violence because they know with these RICO laws, any type of violence in addition to crimes, you're looking at 30 years. So murder is really off the table. You've really got to do something bad in the mob nowadays. They're even shying away from beating people up because they don't want to get hit with a violence thing on their charge.
Yeah, so it's sort of gone underground really, as opposed to, well, they always were, but they've just toned it right down.
Yeah, but they were more in your face. I mean, they
Yeah,
definitely with the social clubs and
yeah,
the pinky rings and they were kind of flaunting it for a while and it came back to bite them in the ass.
yeah. Could you spot them easily when you were on the force? Like, did you know who was who?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where there was social clubs and it was like find the mobster.
yeah,
I didn't know exactly who everybody was as a kid, but you knew not to go in that club or bar.
yeah. And I guess, yeah, lastly, I'll finish off. What's your message to the world?
Any day above ground is a good day.
Beautiful.
Your health is the most important thing and take care of yourselves.
Man, it's incredible. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I definitely want to do some more interviews with you as well.
Sure. Yeah, just
And
give me the heads up.
yeah, well, thank you very much. It's been a great time, and yeah, it's awesome stories.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
But yeah, we'll stay in touch too. So
Absolutely.
I'll get this edited and posted. Thank you very much, Vic. And again, yeah, it's been awesome. That's some crazy stories.
All right, man. Take care.
Thomas Berryman TV, MC Wicks. You are now rocking with the greatest. Worldwide universal, we kick games, drop gems. Knowledge expand the brain. We don't speak no lie, this all factual. Travel through sound waves, international. My aura is shining, but that's natural. From the cosmos, supernatural, extraterrestrial with the ill flow. Too high, too elevated. Art and culture is beautiful, we gon' celebrate it. Documented this history in the making. Connecting with the rest of the planet through conversation. Building from the ground up, this the foundation. Through the power of thought manifestation. Gift the gab, champion rap, greatness. Timeless like hieroglyphs. Who would've ever pictured this? Blow.